Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
Hey there.
And Dane Christensen.
Hello.
And,
glad to be here.
Are you?
Yeah, because I might not be able to make it for the interview. So I'm glad to be here for this part.
We are the Naked Marketers, and we're so glad you showed up for the show today. Our guest on the show today is Mounir Shita. Mounir Shita is a bona fide, real-life startup entrepreneur and in the mobile space, and he's working on stuff that, we did the interview, and I think it made Dane stroke out. It was so smart. There were so many smarts in there that Dane had a little stroke, a little aneurysm, and he wasn't a part of it for much. I think the eyes rolled back. He said, "Hello, I'm glad that you've joined us on the show." And then Dane went silent. You'll find that when you actually hear the interview.
You'll find that you don't hear me. Yeah, I was thinking about
dark.
the new Zach Galifianakis interview with Bruce Willis. And
yeah,
I couldn't get that out of my head all of a sudden.
What was his name? Who did the glasses with the beard and went on Dave Letterman to promote his movie like 2 years ago? Joaquin Phoenix. That's sort of what it felt like. Like you got to play Joaquin Phoenix, the silent drugged out part of the radio interview.
I love that we're already. I love that we're 2 minutes in the show and already completely off track.
We are off track, and we should start with the news because there is some awesome news. It's a big news week this week. We have a lot of news. Where would you like to start, Megan?
Well, let's talk about television for once.
Sometimes called the boob tube.
Nobody watches television anymore.
Nobody watches television.
Why would we ever want to talk about this?
Actually, it turns out they do.
Liar.
A Pew Research poll released in September showed a slight increase as television as a news source. So what Pew did was ask respondents where they got their news yesterday, and they found 31% of people read a newspaper, 34% listen to news on radio. Online news continues to skyrocket to 34%, yet television news still dominates at 58%, which is actually pretty amazing. And they also spend more time with television. So,
can I just say that I've figured out why it's gone up?
More people are going to the gym?
No, I've figured this out. I had to do jury duty a couple of months ago, and one of the questions from the judge as we started was, where do you get your news from? Like what periodicals? And there were at least 3 men of, say, 50-plus age who cited Us Weekly as their source of news.
They did not.
They did. I was there in the room.
I believe they were rated the best tabloid publication recently.
You know, that's
Most
something I want to strive for.
So my point is, if you say, like, there are... I guarantee there are people, I would love to know what percent, but I guarantee there's a percentage of the American population who thinks e-news and celebrity news is news. That's the news. TMZ, right?
Yeah, but see, that's online. What of those news shows?
About,
TMZ, I guess they have a show now. TMZ has a show, but yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, what other are you talking about? Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
It does not. There is a link to the full research survey, and I did not read it all, so I cannot tell you that. But,
right. Well, I'm off track with that, maybe.
This is the question that I had on this. I wonder if you change the question a little bit and said, what percentage of your overall media do you get from television? I wonder if that number is still climbing slightly, as they indicate. Because news, I can see people still going to the television for news. I mean, I can see people going to, because we're acclimated to short stories, we're acclimated to, this is where many generations
background, I think,
exactly. If this is what you turn on while you're cooking dinner, this is what you turn on while you're getting ready in the morning. But where you get most of your media or your more substantive media, I wonder if it's still the case that it's television, and I doubt that's true.
And was it a big news summer? I mean, we had the oil spill. That didn't keep people like glued to their TV. I think Megan brings up a big point, which is that TV news is not just watched at home, but it's kind of ubiquitous. I mean, it's at the the convenience store, the gym. There are a lot of places that you can sort of watch TV, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, you know what? They actually do break it down. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, C-SPAN, and then the evening news shows ABC, NBC, CBS.
And Entertainment Tonight didn't make it.
It's actually not on there. If it is,
That's so crazy.
it is below 50%.
Because that is news.
So,
That's the news that matters.
Okay.
right.
But
Yeah,
in
well,
other,
it is
speaking
a
of
little
news,
scary.
speaking of news on advertising, online advertising is up.
Woohoo!
That's a good thing, right?
It's a really good thing
Why do we care about that, Dane?
Well,
because it keeps Dane
Primarily-
employed.
That's right.
primarily it's what I do for a living. And it's, in my opinion, it's a place that still makes sense. And it has a lot of room for growth. I don't see any slowdown at all. So that's a good thing, obviously. But I think we've also seen various figures throughout the year about advertising being up in a lot of places. I think print is the only place that continues to sort of suffer, and we didn't bring figures onto the show like that. But I did talk to a creative director for an agency here in Salt Lake the other day, and kind of, just in general, here's what I think is odd personally. I think when we talk about economic indicators, I think one of them is advertising spending up? Are companies investing in marketing? Because it appears that they are. Obviously, they are in online ad spending, and I think we should break it down a little bit where that money's going, because I think that's interesting. But I think it's a good sign in general. I think companies are, right now investing in growth.
Well, it's interesting that we have a couple of links to post on related specifically to this story. The Mashable story has a nice graph leading from the last 10 years, and you can see this massive quarterly revenue growth through fourth quarter 2008, and then there was a slowdown. There was a very clear slowdown first quarter 2009 through third quarter 2009, and then it's been on an upward trend since, and that's
which is right about when I launched my internet advertising business.
Which may very well actually speak to that trend. Thank you, Dane. On behalf of our global economy, thank you for starting your business.
I try to have an impact.
I think I think what we've seen, historically, is that it's a leading indicator, and who knows how long it's going to take. But the more messages people get, they are inclined to reach into their wallets, and we'll see how. Whether they're spending cash or credit, I think is the thing to. That's an economic message, but I don't think our habits have changed. We still buy when we are advertised to. That's who we are.
I know. Interesting.
Sad
Buy when
but true.
Advertised to.
Yeah.
I wanted to break this down just a bit, and this is from the Mashable article, but let's see. So businesses and individuals spent approximately $12 billion in the first 6 months of 2010 in online advertising. So that's up 11%. That's a big number, 11% up. But to break it down, the majority of that is going into search advertising, which I think is interesting. It's interesting because they're I guess what bothers me about it is that I do a lot of search advertising, and obviously the more money that goes into it, the more it costs. So that's becoming a tougher place to compete. But there are a lot of things I guess we won't get into in this show. A lot of different ways that search is becoming smarter, and it's expanding certainly far beyond the quick little text ad on a paid search result. A lot of ways that you can do remarketing, and Google's getting smarter with display advertising opportunities, and Facebook would advertising would fit into the search category. So that's the lion's share. But the one that had the greatest growth within the category is digital video. That I thought was a really interesting little statistic.
Yeah, I think so
Old
too.
Spice.
Yeah.
Old Spice.
Yeah,
Old
they put a
Spice.
lot into it.
More was spent in video advertising from January to June than in any other half-year period before, an increase of 31% from the first half of 2009. Online video promotion. Digital video. Interesting.
Yeah. So we're an audio-only show, so we're going to ignore that and move straight on to our next
users.
Yes, that's right. What is our next story? We have. Let's talk. Should we talk about Facebook a little bit?
We're going to talk a little bit about Facebook.
Let's do
Megan, did you want to tell us a little bit about Facebook?
Well, I don't know if it's just me or I'm paying more attention to it, but they seem to be rolling out quite a lot of new features lately. So this is a story about some additional features they've rolled out, very important features, including threaded comments and voting. So now when somebody posts something to their wall, instead of just this long list of comments where you add your comment to the end of all of the other comments, you can now comment on a particular person's comment. So it's a thread that you can specify where your comment goes. And even probably cooler is you can vote on other people's comments, both up and down. So
why is that cool? Do you?
Because,
I mean, and I guess I'm trying to get to: is this a latent need to be able to say your comment is stupid?
Well, this has been a controversy not a controversy, but this has been talked about for some time with Facebook. They've only offered you the option to give a thumbs up to things versus giving a thumbs down to things. So I don't know if this is their way of giving people a little bit of control over commenting on comments.
Right. You still can't thumbs down the primary article, but maybe this is where they're throwing us a bone.
I don't know. I mean, to me, I like being able to comment on a, kind of a sub comment. I like being able to do that. You're able to do that on pretty much any blog that exists out there today. So why shouldn't you be able to do it on Facebook?
It's not a new technology.
Well, to be honest, when they rolled it out, I was like, "Oh, you can't do that already." It just didn't even occur to me that you couldn't do it. But
I knew you couldn't do it because I'm with you. There've been numerous times where I thought,
I'm not even going to post because it makes no sense to post at the end.
Yeah, but or somebody just had some brilliant thing to say and you wanted to comment about it,
or you wanted to like it. You wanted to like their comment.
You wanted to not comment about it. You wanted to like it. Exactly. Here's my take on it, Megan and Pete. Here's what I think. I think that a lot of the internet economy is driven. Now, brace yourselves. Is driven by traffic.
Wait,
and
what?
Site visits.
What?
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, the amount of traffic your site generates can have an impact on your revenue.
Oh, is that important?
True story. So here's what I think. I think Facebook. I'm sure that they. There's so many meetings at Facebook I wish I was a fly on the wall for, but because how long have they been debating this and what goes into the decision and what are the reasons they wouldn't do it and where have they tested it? I think would all be very interesting. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, this sort of interactivity just drives traffic, and Facebook needs traffic. You wouldn't think with 500 million members that they'd be terribly concerned, but the truth is, people have varying degrees of how much time they're going to spend on Facebook, or you might go on a little, for Lent, you give up Facebook, for instance, something like that. But if I've people just have this like I've commented, I want to see if people liked it or didn't like it, and they go back to see, and they go back and check. It's sort of an embarrassing trait of the human race, don't you think? I mean, I'm a little embarrassed by that the narcissism, but I know that the Salt Lake Tribune here in Salt Lake launched a new website or new version of their site about 4 months ago. And the prior version had this thumbs up, thumbs down for comments to the stories. And when they launched the new site, they had only the thumbs up. They dropped the thumbs down. And people clamored. I mean, for like a couple of weeks, people really missed that feature and were really loud about it. And now it's back.
Would you give somebody a thumbs down, or would you dislike a comment? When? I should say when.
I prefer the bury. Dig has a feature in commenting where you can bury comments, and I like that better because it says, this comment's downright offensive or totally unrelated. I'm going to bury that because and it'll bury from my thread, and once it's gotten enough berries, it disappears. I don't know how voting works. Like if a certain comment gets enough votes down, does the comment disappear from the thread? If that's the case, then I would, I guess I would find myself burying offensive or truly inane or non-related comments. But in general, it has never occurred to me that this is a feature that's missing in my interaction with Facebook, because either I like it or I don't.
Yeah, I don't have any plans to start voting comments down, and the only place I can see it, Megan, probably, I'm just, trying to guess or whatever, is if you see somebody being insensitive or, you know what I mean? I mean, that sort of thing, because in a sort of the social, the virtual social space that you create with these sort of friends and acquaintances on Facebook, you'd expect a certain amount of civility, and probably not going to vote down a political comment I disagree with, for instance. That's where I was going with that. But there's another little feature to all this that jumps out at me, that there is a comment count and rating now, so that there's going to be sort of a numerical expression of how popular perhaps a comment is, or
they're making a game out of wit, I
guess.
Wow, that's sure. Alarming.
It's right? I mean, these are the little things that we sort of don't think much about, but at the end of the day seem to be driving driving a good portion of like blog traffic, for instance. I know Huffington Post, I've noticed, and I read a very interesting story about them, and how important the commenting is to the news cycle, because it drives a lot of traffic. But I've noticed now that articles on the Huffington Post often end with, "What do you think? What's your take?"
Right.
Asking a question at the end of the news piece.
Well, that's the nature of building in that interactivity in the process. And on that front, I think it's a really good thing. I mean, you look at both from the, yes, it drives traffic to start a dialogue about a particular thing. Yes, it allows the sort of comment space to drive editorial decisions, which I don't necessarily think is inappropriate. If you're a publication like the Huffington Post and are looking to give, the kind of content, and cover the kinds of stories on a limited staff and limited budget that your audience tends to read. But in the advertising space, you look at what Hulu has done, and they're certainly not alone, by allowing you to vote on the ads that you like to see. As I'm watching a show and an ad comes up, it says, is this ad relevant to you? Yes, it is,
I think it's,
or no, it isn't.
So smart. And here's the thing. I have counted Hulu down from day one, and they've proven me wrong
every single step. Me too. I am on the record as saying Hulu is just ridiculous.
I thought it was a failed idea to begin with, yeah. And obviously not. Yeah. But here's what I think is brilliant about this. In the advertising world, there's so much thought and effort that goes into basically the psychology of human behavior, and trying to predict things, and trying to ascertain like a certain target audience's response, and obviously focus groups, and really a whole lot of voodoo and witchcraft that goes into a lot of demographic targeting and ad creation. Well, here is just the straightforward: give it a vote.
Yeah,
it's sort of like it takes. It takes this big leap forward by
taking many big leaps back.
Yeah, just this sort of raw, like, why didn't someone else think of that? But
it's real time. It's that real time measurement that is so critical right now.
Well, here's what I think is critical. Pete, you had mentioned this before the show, that you actually find yourself watching the commercials that other people have voted positively for. So obviously, if you take 10 commercials and 2 of them get a lot of bad votes, a bummer, I guess, for that company, because chances are it's not really going to get watched. But if you're the company that got a lot of upvotes for your ad, it's interesting that now you're going to have people selecting to watch the ad, right?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I don't skip those ads.
That's where I think it's really, that's where I start to see, like, because obviously just a huge concern of advertisers is their ad being seen today. It's not hard to get out there, I guess. I mean, it's not hard to put a whole bunch of money into banner advertising or to try to get a viral video going, or that sort of thing. There's just there's so many different platforms now that there weren't before, or weren't previously. So many things available to get your message out, but at the same time, so many ways to avoid them. like obviously DVRs is one, but to vote on commercials, and I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the road somebody like hangs their hat on how many upvotes they got on Hulu for a particular commercial or for their brand, rather than, I mean, historically with advertising, there's kind of what the Clio Awards, and it's really kind of advertising peers voting on how awesome a commercial was that may have no relevance to how well it sold a product or how popular, the ad was or how many times it got seen. But this is kind of, I think, adding a new layer of, I guess, critique, to how you get exposure.
This is an interesting. There's sort of an interesting parallel with what with, as you say, what companies, media outlets are hanging their hats on the number of votes, and then you have what went on with the Gap last week and has been, it looks like, resolved this week. Are you up to speed with what has happened with the Gap logo? Since we talked about it last week.
Ranted about it last
week. We did rant. I don't want to rant about it very long, but there was a statement from Marka Hansen, president of Gap Brand North America, on the gapinc.com blog. And I was pretty fired up last week because they caved based on comments from the internet. And this is a space where I don't necessarily think crowdsourcing is a way to to get a logo updated. I didn't really care much for the new logo, but I didn't think it was terribly offensive, as many did. Either way, I think it probably would have passed. Well, this statement, they just caved and they switched back to the old logo, and the statement I thought was interesting. Since we rolled out an updated version of our logo last week on our website, we've seen an outpouring of comments from customers and the online community in support of the iconic blue logo. Last week, we moved to address the feedback and began exploring how we could tap into all of the passion. Ultimately, we learned just how much energy there is around our brand, to say the least. And all roads were leading us back to the blue box. So we made the decision not to use the new logo on Gap.com any further. In the meantime, websites will go back to the iconic blue box logo. For the holiday, they'll turn it red. Quote, "We've learned a lot in this process, and we are clear that we did not go about this in the right way. We recognize that we missed the opportunity to engage with the online community. This wasn't the right project at the right time for crowdsourcing. This wasn't the right project at the right time for crowdsourcing."
Whatever.
Wow.
They never. That was such an afterthought when they were like, "Oh,
yeah.
Let's get your feedback."
I'm so with Peter on this. They wimped out, caved, and it's dumb. They shouldn't have.
Yep. And then the last line I think is pretty telling. "There may be a time to evolve our logo, but if and when that comes, we'll handle it in a different way." There was a great blog post, and we should find it for the notes, of a designer who said, "I've never walked into a Gap store and had somebody offer me a free pair of pants because they didn't like the pants I was wearing. And so why should you expect the crowd to be able to do something that professional designers really spend time studying and do? And you can't agree on design, so get over it." And move on. And they caved in the absolute worst way, and I think that's really unfortunate.
I think they did too. And I'll just say real quick here, and I know Megan's dying to get off this topic immediately, but I think the original supposedly iconic Gap logo reminds me of macrame.
Like it should be hanging in a frame on your grandmother's wall.
No, it's totally
that
like
is
it's
so random.
I know. Where that came from?
That's priceless.
Wow.
You guys remember macrame, don't you?
That is priceless.
You guys probably still do macrame.
Okay, so anyhow, here's the next story. What is the next story? Should we Windows Phone launched this weekend, and I think it's really mostly interesting only because they're spending a lot of money. Have you seen the ads, the Windows Phone 7 ads?
There's a number of interesting things here, but yeah, I thought the ads were an odd approach, making fun of people who use smartphones to sell them a smartphone.
That's right. Okay, the ads are get your face out of your phone. This is wonderfully me. You'll have this phone and you can look at it to do the things that you want to do quickly and easily, and then you'll be able to get back to living your life, and you won't be hit by a car or a runaway grocery cart or something like that. I don't know if that's the message that gets me, but the ads are funny. I find them funny. I watch them. They're engaging. I don't turn the channel
They're
when
a
they're
crisp
on.
and border product, aren't they?
They are. They did a good job with those ads. They're clever. I don't know that that's the message I would want selling my phone. And it's particular because and this may surprise you, I like Windows Phone 7. From what I have seen from the launch video and watching the demos.
Do you feel dirty when you say that? I mean, does it make you feel dirty?
Or do I feel a whole new kind of clean? I feel like the OS itself I think is innovative and interesting, and I think to me it's much more intuitive than Android, and I think that it will be an interesting competitor for Android. It does not make me want to switch. I'm very happy where I am, but they're spending $400 million to get this out there, which, as many have said, $400 million is the kind of coin that one spends when one realizes this is a make or break deal, that Microsoft has lost a whole lot of space in the mobile space, and that they recognize this is where they need to be. And they put the operating system together, and it looks like the hardware partners, for this kind of a launch, they released seven phones on 3 different hardware partners that, should make for an interesting holiday race, and they're hitting the market in the next 3 to 4 weeks. After this announcement. So, it'll be interesting. As a point of comparison, let's see here. We got the numbers for how much they spent on Windows XP. So Windows XP and Windows Vista.
Combined?
No. It wasn't combined. Oh, see, I have way too many windows open. Way too many windows open.
Speaking of Windows.
Tabs. They're all tabs, man. They spent $500 million on XP and Windows 7 and each.
Okay.
I can't imagine them spending that. No, Windows 7 was the one where they spent $1 billion, close to $1 billion, they say. And so, so for building mobile, but all the other products, including Xbox Live, they launched, or the Xbox they launched for $500 million, and this, so this is they're spending some good money on getting the message out about Windows Phone 7. This should be pretty much everywhere, judging by by comparison, and in addition to hardware partners and carriers who are also going to be footing the bill. I wonder if we're not going to get up into that $800 million range to get these phones out the door.
So we kind of hacked through that story a bit, but I do that's I mean, what jumps out at me is, I would say, first of all, thank you for spending that kind of money in this economy. That's great.
Right.
It's a good thing to see that kind of money being spent in marketing. But the other thing is, like you said, this kind of money represents basically, I guess, make it or break it, right?
Yeah, that's sure what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I think they recognize that. And I think they recognize how serious it is that they get this out and able to work on all partners. The interesting thing will be to see how much lock-in there is. I mean, if they really, where do they fall on the locked in like Apple or completely open and chaotic like Android line? How much do they want their phones to work on all platforms? Or is it you just pretty much have to be on Windows and you have to be, I just heard that the Zune application will be released for the Mac at least later this year. So you will be able to synchronize your data to the Mac to a Windows phone. So that's a change. It's a change in how Microsoft operates for sure. So I think it's a big story this week. If you haven't seen the launch video, check it out on Microsoft.com. I believe it's just /phone, and you can catch up on what was actually a pretty good launch, with the exception of Steve Ballmer, who, seriously, people, what a face for radio that guy is. He's just tough to watch stumble through. Stumble through the launch, his section of the launch.
Us, Peter?
Well, hey, present company absolutely accepted. He, the developers he had up there, were fantastic. They were savvy. They knew their products. They did a great job. And then every time he stepped up on the stage, it was like, wah, wah, wah. Anyhow, what's next we have to talk about?
He should coach. He should coach like high school sports.
Absolutely.
Let's do. I would love for Megan to discuss the burrito.
The new Chipotle campaign, that's just my favorite.
Do it.
Is it?
It is one of my favorites. So, as you know, I spend a lot of time looking at cause marketing campaigns, but I think this particular Chipotle burrito campaign is just a fabulous marketing campaign that happens to incorporate a cause. So essentially what has happened is Chipotle and the founder of Chipotle, whose name is escaping me, Steve somebody, has teamed up with Jamie Oliver, who has this huge food revolution movement to get kids and families more educated about fresh foods and how to prepare them. So what you do this Halloween is you go into a Chipotle dressed as the nastiest, most horrible junk food you can imagine. And for $2, they'll give you one of their fabulous burritos. And essentially what they're doing is funneling that $2 directly to Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution. So if you come in after 6 p.m. on Halloween dressed as a horrifying processed food, then you get one of their products and you get to make a donation. So the reason I think this is awesome is because it's creative, it's unique. They're using Halloween as this one-day event. And I really think it has the potential to go viral. They have these really cute video of Steve and Jamie on the Chipotle site dressed as like a chicken nugget and dipping sauce. And I just think it could be funny. There are a lot of people who really get into the Halloween thing, and what better reason, to get dressed up as something unique and creative for a good cause.
Well, and we also know that part of the reason you like this is it has that cosplay feel to it. And,
maybe that's the reason you like it. But I love it. I love it all around. I think it's a great campaign. So if
it is a good campaign. It's smart.
So moved,
it's funny.
Go into Chipotle on Halloween dressed as a horrifying processed food.
I think that's really funny, especially after Jamie Oliver's tearjerker of a show here. What was it? Food Revolution. Did you watch any of that show? That was just a really awful, horrible experience to watch.
American school lunch.
How we are failing our kids in the classroom now. If you go see Waiting for Superman, and in the kitchen, if you go see, if you watch any of Food Revolution,
or just visit your kid's school like I did last week and had my son's birthday. He wanted me to go to have school lunch with him at his school, and it was not impressive. It was scary.
That's really
lots of sugar,
lots of fried things,
and sugar. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else to talk about in terms of the news? Did we get through it all, people?
I wanted to just say something real quick here.
Do
it. So, this is a world. There's a lot of viral marketing experiments that work and some that don't. But there was one in Los Angeles the other day by a band called the Imperial Stars, and I just wanted to really briefly read what the Los Angeles Times had to say about it.
All right.
If I could.
Yes.
In the land where publicity stunts are daily fare, it's hard to grab the attention of Los Angeles residents. But messing with traffic, as President Obama recently learned when he was in town, is a start. At a local music band that decided to park its truck diagonally across 3 lanes of southbound traffic on the 101 freeway, hop out and hold an impromptu concert, and you've got a stunt that, stopped traffic. These 3 gentlemen are now in jail, by the way. But I
wonder how that audience compares. Would you rather play for an angry jailhouse or Los Angelinos stuck in traffic?
I wonder how trashed they were when they did that. That just seems like a death wish.
Crazy?
First of all, I mean, how do you even park a car across 3 lanes of traffic?
It was a truck. Did you see the picture? There's a picture of it.
Wasn't it a van?
A van. It was a big truck.
One of the more ill-advised guerrilla marketing campaigns of all time is this one right here: stopping traffic in Los Angeles.
You know what that says? It says to me that there actually is such a thing as bad press.
Well, I'd never heard of the Imperial Stars before this, so I don't know. Maybe
and
they
you probably never will again.
Oh, they're horrible. Actually, you got to watch the video. Terrible, terrible band. But anyway, I get a real kick out of guerrilla marketing campaigns that don't go well. I think that's you're always walking a fine line with guerrilla marketing.
And I think on that note, we should make this an exercise in contrasts and bring the smarts.
Let's do it.
This week, we are welcoming our special guest, Mounir Shita, to the show. Mounir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mounir, you are a bona fide, real-life startup guy, right? That's what you do for a living.
Yeah. I love the ability to work for big corporations.
Well, it's so great that we have you on the show because, as you know, we've been talking about over the last this show and last week that this season is devoted really to talking about startups and engagement marketing from the perspective of the startup community and how you build engagement with people who, A, you haven't reached, but that's not necessarily novel, but B, people you actually have to educate that you even exist and that what your technology is. Now, I was, lucky enough to be involved in a focus group of one of your new projects very recently, and you are working on some technology that is just out there. It's not even technology; it's philosophy. It is lifestyle stuff. You are working on, on building the future. And in our pre-show, you said something that really stuck out to me. That you see your job as building the world that you want to live in. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you got to this place?
As a kid, my room was kind of like Star Trek. I had built all of these light switches, and everything was controlled by hand movements and stuff like that. And so ever since I've been a kid, I've always been fascinated about the future. I always wanted to live in this future you saw on TV. And I just think that, development is fast these days, but it's not fast enough. As in, a little scared that the future I want to live in is going to happen after I pass away. So, I've kind of made it my goal to really build the world I want to live in.
I wonder if you could give us just a brief overview of, I'm understanding your technology that of the future is based on ambient intelligence. So could you give a couple examples to our listeners about what types of technologies, and what your personal vision is for what the world should be like in the future?
So ambient intelligence is, it's not a technology, it's not a product, it's an idea of how the world works. And, in the future, and in this future, every device is intelligent and it's connected to the web, and every application is intelligent. So, it gives you some very futuristic examples out there. But a simple example is, you have an alarm clock that you've set at 7 o'clock every morning to wake up so that you can be in your office at 8. Well, one day that alarm clock might wake you up at 6 because it realized there's traffic out there, and by the alarm clock might have talked to, other alarm clocks, other cars on the road to figure out where everyone is heading, and then realize that it's going to take me an extra hour to get to work. So, it wakes me up an hour ahead of time. So now you're starting to talk about, an alarm clock that's intelligent and understands why you have to get up at 7. It just doesn't, wake you up at 7 because it was programmed to wake you up at 7. And because it understands why, it can actually be flexible enough to change that time based on stuff that's going out in the world.
See, now, here's why I get so excited about that. First of all, because, well, you know me. I mean, if I could actually implant said alarm clock as a chip in my body someplace, that would be freakishly cool. But mostly because it's you're sort of outsourcing some of these low level functions like alarm clock setting to systems that know better than I do. I don't know intuitively, innately how traffic patterns are for a given morning, but there is a network out there that does. The issue that I have with this whole thing, and based on the conversation that was stimulated in this focus group, is there are some really key issues with, when it comes to being involved in launching such new products based on technology that fundamentally shakes people's worldview and how they interact with space and time and tech and tools and cars and clocks. where do you even start, man? I mean, how do you even start, educating people and making them and getting them willing to look at what you're doing when it shakes them so fundamentally?
Well, I asked myself that same question a couple of years ago when I really started on this project. I started on this project thinking, I should make this more of a business challenge than a technology challenge. And by that, I mean, you can build futuristic technologies and, the value of it is probably going to be exactly zero because it's too far out there. So the real challenge is figuring out how you can incorporate futuristic technology with the world today and get people to buy into your story about where we're heading as a planet.
What does that mean? What is the story that you're looking to tell here?
Well, we all agree, at least most people I talk to agree that 50 years from now we're going to live in a world that probably to most people will be considered futuristic today. What everyone, and not that they don't agree, but what people can't describe is what will the world look like in 50 years from now. So that's the story. We believe that in the year, well, let's see, what's 50 years from now? That's 2060. So in the year 2060, the world will look like, ABCD. And you're going to have to be able to tell that story, make a story about the world of tomorrow, and make it in a way that people actually buy into it and are willing to participate in either using your technology, selling your technology, or incorporating your technology into whatever they're doing. And that's fairly tricky. One thing I found out is, what is futuristic? What is science fiction? And the conclusion I came to when I kind of started digging into what that meant is something that's futuristic means that a person can't see a path from what they know about today to what you're talking about tomorrow. So what we have decided to do, and it's really a core of our business strategy, is to build something that makes sense in the year 2010 with this futuristic technology really behind the scenes, and then build a story around what we are deploying today that allows people to really see a path to what we're talking about tomorrow. And if you can actually build that path successfully, it doesn't become futuristic anymore. It becomes realistic. And it becomes more of a matter of time on how to get there, maybe time and resources and whatever is needed. But people can see a path, and the futuristic category stamp goes away.
That's a fascinating statement, and I think it's worth reflecting on just a little bit, particularly in the terms of tactics. I mean, if I think you're probably spot on, and I think that's how how marketing in general tends to work. I mean, you're telling a story of something that is both, I'm building a relationship with you based on what I am doing as a marketer and what my products are, and but I'm also telling a story of how it's going to integrate with your life. Well, in this case, I'm telling a story of something that is integrating with your life in a level that you may have never seen before, but you're willing to accept because it's sort of, what is the word, close enough? It's in proximity of something that you can use. Here's an example that hits me in the news today. Right, 10 years ago, if I had read the story about Google having a robot, intelligent car driving thousands of miles through city streets, as was news released this week, that may have shocked me. But today, it doesn't shock me so much. So when I get into a new Ford that has enough intelligence in it to tell me where I can park and actually do the parallel parking activity for me, because I've been sort of indoctrinated into that story of having a car that can drive, I'm willing to accept the fact that I can let go of parallel parking. And that is a product now that it's a feature that I want in my next car, not something that I'm going to be afraid of. Is that sort of where you're going here? Am I making that up?
No, that's that's exactly what our goal is. But more importantly is who do you tell the story to? If you tell the right story to the wrong person, you got nothing. So what we have spent a lot of time on this is really figuring out, what story do we build, how do we tell it, and to who do we tell it to, and that's equally important as really making a path from something that people understand exists today to what you want to exist tomorrow.
I'm incredibly curious because in addition to Peter's example about Google and intelligent cars, it makes me think of things like Twitter, things that people didn't know they needed. And I'm getting this storytelling and this path from current to future, but I'm curious to know, you're talking about telling the right story to the wrong person. I'm curious to know if you've been able to systematize or have some sort of structure around how you get that information from the right people about what is currently within their grasp of comprehension or adoption. Have you been able to figure that out at all? Do you have any questions you're asking or structure you're using to try to pull that information out?
Well, we're the way we're doing it is that our target is actually not consumers. Our target is actually the people in the ambient intelligence research community. And it's pretty easy to figure out, what they know today, what they accept today, because, ambient intelligence today is a pure research topic. No one has actually managed to develop a technology that's deployable. With them, you can talk about something that's going to be real in 2150, and it's plausible to them. But if you look at our first product that we're releasing, and Pete, you tried it out,
right?
There's really no rocket science behind it. I mean, you're watching a cooking show on TV. You go to the store, you pick up the ingredients, and you come home and make it. And it was designed to not be too far out there, because average people who do not, have a special interest in technology will have a harder time accepting a technology if it's too futuristic, if it changes their life too much, even if it's for the better. But if the change is too big, people tend to kind of push it away. So you'll see us had different stories to different people. For the average consumer, it's all about just make it a little bit better than how it is today. Don't make it too intelligent, or at least don't make it appear too intelligent, because there's too many negative stories about, intelligent technology. Just make it appear as, this is what you do today, and with our technology, you can keep doing the same thing, but it'll be a little better, a little faster.
You say that your product is not necessarily targeted to the consumer audience. It's targeted to the research research market to actually drive implementation. And yet, at some point, the consumer has to be involved. The consumer has to accept what you're doing in order to even have people interested in implementing it into their system. It all sort of ends in how we're able to incorporate this new technology into our lives. So the question is, how do you do that? We've talked a lot about the story that you're trying to tell. And you also mentioned, we have to find the right people and tell them at the right time. So and I think Megan got to this question, how do you actually find the right people?
Well, to answer from our perspective, ambient intelligence is projected to have a greater impact on our lives than the web did. So if that's true, 50 years from now, we'll think that the life in 2010 would be Stone Age. Now, if we make that an assumption for us, how do you change the world that drastically? Well, you need market power and you need credibility, and that's something we don't have. Mm-hmm. No startup in the world has that. So, in a way, you're going to have to define your own target. Who you're going to go after, and to us, that is our first priority is acquiring the market power and the credibility that's needed to really inflict global change.
Does that mean you want to be bought?
Yes.
So as part of your business strategy that you brought up earlier, and I'm looking at this from a tactical sort of, startup philosophy. In order for you to really take it to the next level on a technology like this, you really have to be purchased.
Well, we have to be purchased, or we have to have a pretty deep partnership with someone. And I just don't see a path to changing the world unless you can acquire market power and credibility. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But so our acquisition strategy is a little different. In most startups, you want to get bought so that you can, retire to Bahamas and have a drink at the beach. With us, it's really, that is the next step to inflict change in the global economy. There's a lot of research going on in ambient intelligence, and if you want people to listen to you, you have to stand out. And that's why we have a consumer approach. That's why we're deploying technology. Because we'll be the only one in the world right now that has ambient intelligence deployed and being used, well, hopefully being used by consumers. And that by itself will hopefully give you enough, initial credibility that people will actually start listening. And, the first trick in storytelling is to get people to listen.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that Peter was part of a focus group that you've done recently. What are the tools that you use to kind of test some of your ideas? Is it kind of these in-person qualitative things, or are there other methods that you're using to see how your products are resonating with consumers? And I don't even know if you're to the stage of talking about messaging.
Yeah, so we actually tested out quite a bit, from product testing to actually technology testing, and it was some interesting feedback. From product testing, I've been looking through the feedback we got, and I kind of excludes Pete's feedback because everything seems to go very smooth with Pete and his testing process. But so we did a lot of product testing. We were trying to figure out how to make things smoother. The task was, you're going to watch a cooking show on TV, and the goal was to make the dish later on, as in you have to go to the store, pick up the groceries, and then come home, pull up the recipe. And in a normal process would mean, write down the ingredients list and the recipe. I noticed some of our participants used some iPhone applications to type, I think, keep pictures of the screen.
Right.
But with our technology, you just sent a text message, and you sent a text message to a certain number, and in return, we automatically create an account for you, and we save the recipe into your account, and we place the ingredients into your shopping list. So when you went to the store, you sent another text message, and in return, you got your shopping list up on the screen. Basically a link to a web page. And the phone automatically understands where you are, and it automatically adds file numbers to each ingredient so that you can easily go around and pick them up. And then you come home, and your recipe is stored on your account so that you can easily find it. You don't have to go into foodnetwork.com and search for their recipes or anything like that. It's stored on your account, and it's really easy to find. So it wasn't, as I said earlier, it wasn't rocket science to use this stuff. But at the same time, we also did a lot of technology testing to help us really carve out the story that we can tell people in the research community. And one of the things that we tested out, which I don't think any participants were aware of, is that our apps, in this case the shopping list app, was probably what I would call below average quality. And it was done on purpose, because one of our theories was that in a world where technology is trying to help you to get from point A to point B, it's not so much about the applications that you're using, if they're fancy, nice looking, if they're flashy or whatever it is. It's about the result and experience. And looking at all the feedbacks, no one actually, there was some feedback about it was hard to use, or they couldn't figure out how to get the aisle numbers up on the screen. But as far as the shopping list as a product, there was really no feedback saying that this is the worst shopping list I ever used. And trust me, it was the worst shopping list. So, and that, just that one point is such a big deal to us that no one complained. Let's put it this way: this is not a shopping list anyone would have downloaded from the App Store. If you did download it, you probably deleted it within a day. But because it was in a process, and they tried to help you throughout the process, it didn't feel like anyone really complained about it. And that is a big selling point when it comes to ambient intelligence. And that's going to be part of our core story, that we're going to go out and tell the research community that, there's some cool things you can do with ambient intelligence without being a super programmer.
That's a really interesting point. And after having gone through the series of exercises, I can attest to the fact that the app itself seemed ancillary to the process. Like, that wasn't what I was. I didn't give it a second thought. And I'm usually pretty sensitive to design, but I didn't give it a second thought because of the integration of the actual shopping list, and the recipe and that stuff was there. It was really more about the text than the design.
Well, and that's probably a question of nice to have versus need to have.
Right.
What's the threshold between functional and pretty, and how much above and beyond do you have to go to make it something that people will use and adopt? That's a whole new question.
That's a whole new question. Well, Mounir, what is the next step? I know you've tested this the shopping list app, but what is the next step? Is this an app you're going to actually work on taking to the market, or is it really just a proof of concept for you to get the platform done?
No, this is we're going to take this to the market.
Okay.
We have a little more development to do. We're going to add a few things to these apps. For example, hopefully within a couple of months after we launch, you'll actually be able to use your remote control on certain TVs instead of sending a text message.
Mm.
So you'll actually be able to press a button on the remote control, and up on the screen it will pop up with the recipe and the ingredients list and the ability to add to your shopping list, or maybe tell you about the nutritional information about it, whatever it is. We're also going to add a function for Android phones and Nokia phones where it runs on the phone at any given time, so you don't actually have to send a text message. And once you get close to a store, it'll automatically pop up with a button on the idle screen saying, press there to open up the shopping list.
Oh, see, now that's ambient intelligence right there. That's that sort of awareness in its sort of purest form, where I don't have to do anything. Just look at my phone and it's there for me. It's anticipated my need.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is actually there for Nokia and the Android phones. Our installation process isn't perfect yet. That's why it wasn't part of the focus group. But that's kind of what we're hoping to really deploy. And in the next few weeks, we'll start targeting, connecting with local TV stations here in Portland and in Seattle area and in Atlanta.
Well, that becomes the big challenge, doesn't it? I mean, when you're building the world you want to live in, it takes a whole lot of partners to get there, and that you have to integrate with old media to get this kind of new smarts built into your phones is it's a worthy challenge. And good luck to you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. We sure appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the future world that you want to live in.
Well, thank you for having me.
Where can people learn more if they want to learn more about what you are up to?
You can go to kimerasystems.com. That's Kimera, and systems with an S at the end.com. And you can read more about what we do and ambient intelligence on our site.
Excellent. Mounir Shita from Kimera Systems. Mounir, thank you so much for your time today. Oh, we thank Mounir for sharing his smarts with us. I think we just witnessed something that we will still probably be talking about in 2050 because we may not even by then actually understand it.
I think Dane was time traveling.
What happened to you, Dane?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I couldn't make it for that interview.
Do you have a meeting with your accountant? Or were you working on that novel you've been working on?
Ooh, I need to.
Yeah,
got a good idea for a novel. So there. Yeah, I wasn't sorry, couldn't be there.
Good interview, and I think really interesting technology. So it'll be fun to see how they evolve over the coming months and years. We have, we were talking about tools, and I think did we just come up short on tools? Or do we want to talk about Dropbox again? You asked a question about backing up, right? What was your question?
Wow, that was a powerful introduction.
Kind of an anemic introduction to a tool that I'm hyper passionate about.
Yeah, well, I'm having this problem where I used to use iDisk pretty consistently and felt like great, my files are backed up. Then I started exclusively, putting my files on iDisk and not having a desktop and an iDisk version of both, and because it's redundancies concern me, because you're going to miss something. I feel like, so anyway, and then, you have these instances of iDisk just not syncing correctly and it doesn't work, or one of your machines that you're hooked up with has somehow thrown the whole thing off, and I don't know, just funky things happen. And so I stopped using it. And the other day I was like, gosh, I really need to get a good cloud system that, that all of my current important files are, I guess on a sort of a cloud solution that gives me a little confidence, right? I mean, but there's some other things that I'm also not doing that you're doing with your cloud solution, Pete. So I thought it might be interesting to talk about that, because I still am struggling with the whole iDisk issue because I'm paying, the fee for it, figure out how to use it, but I don't know.
Well, I'm not saddled with that need. I have been really disappointed overall with Apple's with the iDisk tool. It's sketchy, it's inconsistent, it fails on certain file types, and it's just downright annoying. In contrast, we've talked about Dropbox before. I am a massive fanatic about Dropbox and what it does. It's similar to iDisk, though it doesn't really mount a virtual disk in your system. It just installs a little folder called the Dropbox folder in your root kind of My Documents directory. And that folder is synced with the Dropbox service. So anything you put in that folder is automatically synced up to the Dropbox service. And so I have, every single one of my working documents, my working folders and files and client documents, they're all syncing into this Dropbox folder. And these are the working copies, right? They're synced onto my computer. When I'm offline, I have them. When I'm online, they're in sync with the service. When that really came in handy, we've talked about that part before, but when that came handy, it really came through in spades to me just a couple of weeks ago. I have a shared folder inside of my Dropbox folder for one of my clients, and it's a big client. I mean, it's like gigs of data that we have in there, from video files to, it's just a lot of data. And they hired a new employee, a new director of marketing, who is a sharp guy and was having some trouble with his computer, and he actually took that directory that was synced with him and dragged it into his own My Documents out of the Dropbox, which then removed it from everybody else who was using it. Well, that, of course, is where the system fails, is in human error, when humans don't understand how technology works. And so all those files were deleted, and I panicked. I panicked big time, and I went up to the Dropbox service on the web, and I logged into my account, and I went and said, "Show me all my files." And there's a little button that says "Show deleted files," And sure enough, Dropbox had maintained a list of all those files that had been deleted. And I clicked restore that directory, and every one of those files came back, and it was in exactly the perfect condition, the last snapshot before anybody, the last time anybody had used them. So it really saved our collective bacon, and now we totally understand how that works.
Did you give him a tutorial after that?
Actually, the other people in the company who also are shared went into a white hot rage and gave him, nearly throttled him out of the company, because it was their stuff too. And when a team is working in a folder, there's an understanding that these things are synced, and really somebody has to be kind of the main arbiter of when files get deleted when you're working in a shared space. Most of the time, I don't have a shared folder for just my general working documents. I don't share those with anybody. They're private stuff. But in this case, it has just been, I mean, we were talking about this with in the interview, that there are technologies that didn't exist 10 years ago that we build our business on today. And Dropbox is one of those. For $100 a year, I get 50 gigs of this cloud storage that I don't ever have to worry about. I don't think about it because it's just there. And I literally run my business on it. And so I couldn't sing the praises of Dropbox enough.
Well, and I will say, to your point about user error, I also had a client, this was not nearly as dramatic as yours, but I also had a client that I, sent the invitation to share this folder and thought I explained it well, and found out that he was going to the Dropbox website to access the folder versus his own computer.
That's enough to really piss people off. If you have to do that, if you think that's how it works.
So you do have to, maybe over-explain it sometimes, depending on who you're working with. But it is a fabulous tool. Thank you, Peter.
Well, you're very welcome
for raising the question.
It is an outstanding question, Dan.
You're so welcome.
You luck. I wish you good luck and Godspeed, my friend, in solving your iDisk problem. You should take care of that.
Well, I feel like I contributed something today by asking that question.
You did. I'm just glad your health is okay. I was worried about you for a while. On that note, Dane, where would people find you if they wanted to learn more about all the wonderful things you're up to?
I think I might be going off the grid this week.
What does that even mean? You're going underground?
You know what? I'm not going to. I am still at strike10media.com. Yeah, I was just going to, just shut it all down, take a little experiment, and go off the grid. But
you think that would be too earth-shattering?
Actually, I miss you a lot on Twitter.
I know. See? I don't want my...
You don't want your people to... Yeah.
I was going to call them Twitter fans, but I just not sure that would be funny to anybody but me.
Megan, where can people find you?
I'm at Megan Strand on Twitter and at encouraged.com, which is spelled with an I. And
is that I and? Or
I
and? Spelled with an I
usually
and
I try
an
to spell
N.
The whole thing, but then
and
I thought
C.
maybe I should shorten it now.
And then an O.
This ambient intelligence thing, I think, has ruined all of our
I think we all need help with it. I think we need it to be a little bit more proactive. I am Pete Wright on the Twitter and at fifthandmain.com, but you can learn more about the show at thenakedmarketers.com. Follow us on, or like us. Like us, but don't vote us down on Facebook at facebook.com/NKDmarketers, on the Twitter at Naked Markets, and make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss a single episode of Naked Marketing goodness. On behalf of Dane and Megan, my name is Pete Wright. Thanks so much for joining us this week for another episode of the Naked Marketers.